Is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. It's pretty clear that since the Charlie Kirk fake assassination attempt, that the majority of people out there do not believe the narrative that's being fed to them by the government. That's the narrative of a lone shooter 200 yards away on a rooftop who assembled and disassembled his weapon and hit him right in the neck. And then Charlie Kirk, of course, was carried off the stage because, again, this is all theatrics. These are characters that the government creates. These people who appear as patriots, nationalists, people like Martin Luther King. These are all COINTELPRO operatives that the government has created for decades. And one of the big narratives that's out there is Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson blaming Israel for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You don't hear anybody talking about the possibility of Charlie Kirk being in witness protection. As I've mentioned many times, these characters come and they go. Charlie Kirk's entire shtick was to go to college campuses and mock and ridicule and embarrass young Democrats. He was in his early 30s. Do you think that he was going to continue to play that role into his 40s and 50s and 60s? That's what he's known for. That's what his character did. And it served bigger purpose to have the character assassinated to continue this civil unrest and to redefine what a domestic terrorist is. Because remember, 4 years ago, a domestic terrorist was a conservative, a Republican voter, MAGA. Now a domestic terrorist is a liberal, a Democrat. They're the ones who are turning towards violence against people they disagree with. This is all done by design. So Candace Owens has now come out, and Candace Owens is now the face of the conspiracy, the government manufactured conspiracy. They expect you to look into the narrative that they give and to question it. But what they don't want you to do is actually figure out that this entire matrix is a simulation and that the news itself is a simulation. It is used to manipulate your perspective on things. It is used to manipulate your emotions, to get you on board with certain laws like red flag laws that they want to pass, which eventually will be used on conspiracy theorists, not on transgender people. So people are starting to support Candace Owens because finally we're actually seeing people pointing out Israel. Now, are they pointing out the Talmud? Are they pointing out the teachings that they actually follow? Are they pointing out the book of Revelation, talking about how there will be those who claim to be Jews and are not and are of the synagogue of Satan? Are they talking about the Khazars? No, what they're talking about is the state of Israel. And this is being done deliberately because people are starting to trust in Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson because they're calling out Israel. But there's a purpose to all of this. This is how the government plays with people's emotions. Because again, all it'll take is one false flag against a synagogue. All it'll take is one type of shooting because somebody was radicalized online by Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson because they believe that Charlie Kirk was really assassinated by Israel and there was a gunman hiding behind Charlie Kirk. And all the theories that they're putting out there are the theories that they want out there. There's no notion of, is Charlie Kirk even dead in the first place? No notion of, well, Erica Kirk's behavior is really suspicious. People say, well, maybe she was in on it with Israel. But none of them questioning if it was even a real marriage in the first place. Her connection, obviously, to intel agencies, just like all of these people are connected to the CIA and the FBI. So the narrative that Candace Owens has put out there is that Charlie Kirk, these text messages have been conveniently revealed by Turning Point USA and by Candace Owens, where Charlie Kirk felt pressure from Jewish donors before his death because he was speaking against Israel, right? The authenticity of the text described as unsavory by the Bulwark Sam Stein was confirmed Tuesday by Turning Point USA spokesman Andrew Colvett, who shared the text to government officials immediately following Kirk's assassination, according to Newsweek. I shared it with some people in government because it happened real quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authority to get their suspect. And in these first moments, we wanted no stone unturned, of course, giving you, again, the 33 code, letting you know once again that it took 33 hours for them to apprehend the supposed shooter. And these are the things that you see in the article. Stein says the text leak feeds into Owens' conspiracy theory that Israel killed Kirk, one that has been debunked by those close to him. They want this theory out there because they're going to use it to bring in more anti-Semitic laws. They're going to use this for false flag operations by radicalized individuals who are in the Charlie Kirk camp. But make no mistake about it, Charlie Kirk was the most pro-Israel person on the face of the earth in the media. He literally was going to college campuses, and when people were calling out the Talmud, Charlie Kirk wasn't even defending his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and how the book, the Talmud, talks about Jesus burning in hell and how rabbis could commit these disturbing acts with children. Here's a clip, and of course, notice how the person who is asking the question to Charlie Kirk happens to have a sniper shirt on as well. I'm sure that's a coincidence too.
4713 refers to Jesus being a fornicator. Getting 56 refers to Jesus burning in hell. Shabbat 104b says that Mary was a Baba Messiah 24a reads that if a Jew finds an object that a Gentile goy has lost, does not have to return it. Yebamoth 98a says all children of goyim are animals. Tuspoth Jebamiah 84b says if you eat with a goy, it is the same as eating with a dog. Baba Messiah 114b says Gentiles, goys, are not humans, they are beasts.
All of which are legitimate verses. All of which are legitimate verses. Judaism. But here's my opinion. We'll just disagree. I believe that Paul said in the New Testament, we must bless the Jews. We must bless the Jews. I believe that our own Lord and Savior, when we go up and we see the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, we're going to see a rabbinic rabbi by the name of Jesus Christ sitting on the throne. He was a severe category there. He was a Torah observant, Shabbos observant Jew. Here's the thing: we just have difference of opinion. I think we have an obligation to the Jews as Christians. You might disagree. We can disagree. Thank you for your time. I got to get to the next question. Thank you.
Well, Charlie didn't seem too upset about what was being revealed to him inside of the Talmud. Instead, he just said, hey, I appreciate your question. I appreciate your opinion. I'm going to move on. You couldn't be more pro-Israel than that. If you're going to be questioned about the Talmud and you're a follower of Jesus Christ and you're going to dismiss what's in the Talmud, then you are pro-Israel till death. Charlie Kirk was never going to be assassinated by Israel. They're going to use his death to bring in more of these anti-Semitism laws. There's going to likely be a false flag carried out by somebody radicalized in the alt-right movement because Candace Owens and because Tucker Carlson are telling everybody out there that the narrative that was given was not real. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Every single person should be saying, yeah, that wasn't right. There wasn't any realness to that because it wasn't actually real. And I exposed it in detail when it occurred. But for those of you that don't know, COINTELPRO, okay, is a counterintelligence program. I've broken it down many times. It's an infiltration program. The government has done this for decades. The civil rights movement, they insert people who are really government agents to break up any movement that's occurring that the government deems dangerous. So in other words, the truth movement, 10 years ago when people just looked at us and all said, oh, they're kind of crazy people, right? They saw how big it was getting. They saw how big it was getting around that pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. And they had to carry out a false flag there so that they could bring in more censorship, right? Well, COINTELPRO exists for the purpose that you're seeing right now. The alt-right media is completely controlled. They replaced actual conspiracy theorists and feed their audience government-contrived conspiracy theories without giving you the real information. They give you a little taste of truth and then lead you in the opposite direction. So none of these people are going to talk about Charlie Kirk actually being alive. Candace Owens will just laugh it off and dismiss it and say things like, well, that's ridiculous. Charlie was my friend. I'd know if he was alive, right? Because you're supposed to believe that they're friends, that they're not characters and actors playing you on a world stage, and that they go out to dinner and we could take them at their word, right? Just like all the Freemasons who tell us, yeah, we're not really Freemasons or we don't really worship Satan. Well, what do you expect them to do? You knock on Jeffrey Dahmer's door before he was arrested and say, it smells like you got dead bodies in there. You expect them to say, yep, I got dead bodies in here. Come on in. Of course they're going to deny it, deny it. They're never going to give you the actual truth because they're government agents. In fact, let's listen to Tucker Carlson, who is obviously one of these guys now who's going around speaking against Israel. And people are going, wow, they must be truthers. They're speaking against Israel. Here he is talking about how his father worked for the CIA and how he even applied for the CIA and somehow got denied, which we all know is not true. He was hired by the CIA because these newscasters and these guys who pretend to be independent journalists are CIA operatives. Listen.
And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn, actually, yeah, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA.
He had a bunch of them. He ran the Voice of America for a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years. He was an ambassador in Africa, and then he ran something called the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
I mean, the guy who took out Mossadegh lived on my street. One of the Roosevelt CIA officer. So, I mean, again, I grew up around this stuff, but
that's why it's not happening.
But they seem to be doing so many other things. I mean, I applied to CIA. My dad worked with CIA. I was never against CIA. I thought only like dumb liberals were against CIA, and traitors or whatever. So my views on CIA have evolved based on things that I have seen and personally experienced.
You took a pretty well publicized trip with your father. Was it about 1.5 years ago? How long has it been?
Since we were in Pakistan.
Down to Nicaragua for the summer and work and, get involved in the war, and support the side that we thought was right.
Where you got left behind for a couple of days.
Oh, no, that was when I went to Vietnam with John McCain. Yeah, I had a hassle at the airport.
And are you still traveling with your father on trips?
We spent the summer in Nicaragua trying to get a sense of the war there, and all kinds of hilarity ensued. But yourself, my father's a great guy to travel with and very amusing and adventurous person who's up for anything. So I said, let's go to Pakistan. Okay.
And we have the internet to expose the lies. If this isn't 20 years ago when you were on CNN, and we couldn't expose things, we can expose it now, and they still do it.
Well, I guess I would ask myself, I lie. If I'm really cornered or something, I lie. I try never to lie on TV. I just don't, I don't like lying. I certainly do it, out of weakness or whatever.
So that couldn't be more obvious. I mean, he's literally telling you that he'll lie if he has to lie, right? And that's all he does. So he's one of the guys, too, with Candace Owens, who's pushing this. And you can see Tucker Carlson blaming Israel for Charlie Kirk's death. His memorial speech sparks anti-Semitism, right? This anti-Semitism law that they're going to pass in America is going to be just like every other country. For people that don't know, if you question anything about the Holocaust in Poland, Romania, Russia, Hungary, Germany, if you question and say, hey, I don't know if it was the exact amount of people you even claim it was, let alone many of the other things that we've all questioned about what we've been fed, you will be imprisoned. You will be thrown in jail for questioning. That should make people go, why can't you question something that you're told happened where you weren't there for any proof other than people just telling you? Why can't you question it? Well, this is the only thing you can't question, understand? And the ADL has big plans with the Noahide laws because that's what Trump's going to bring in. So they're going to need some false flags. They're going to need to turn the Jewish people into victims again. With stories like, they're getting blamed for Charlie Kirk. That's not fair, right? That's not fair. We need to put more anti-Semitic laws in there. And what part of the Noahide laws, if you don't know, with idol worship is the banning of Jesus Christ, right? The ADL even has dedicated web pages, myths that the Jews killed Jesus. If you claim that the Jews killed Jesus, you are considered anti-Semitic. The blood libel, which they've gone out of their way to continually say, if you mention the blood libel, you shouldn't have a right to speech. Nobody even talks about the whole theory, the whole story of vampires and vampirism and how it's so popular in culture is because of the blood libel. That's what it's based off of. Okay? Not the guys turning into bats and flying away. The biting and eating and cannibalism of Christian children. Right? And of course, we know on day one, Donald Trump made sure he was going to step up the U.S. task force to combat anti-Semitism, which could be defined as anything. They make it sound in the public like anti-Semitism is bashing somebody of Jewish heritage. But what it's really about is saying, hey, what's in this book? Because everybody openly knows what's in the Bible, and we hear people question the Bible all the time, right? And they're not called anti-Christian, throw them in jail because they're questioning Sodom and Gomorrah. We see people disagreeing with it, right? We see people are angry about Scripture. But with the Jewish people, they don't want you to actually realize what's in the Zohar, what's in the protocols of the elders of Zion, what's happened throughout real history in the world, what is in the Talmud, what is in the Kabbalah, which is really Jewish mysticism, which practices black magic, which is directly connected to Freemasonry and the Eastern Star. And then you can figure out how all of these things are networked and connected together. But they'll call it, as they love to call, any questioning of the real heritage of people who claim to be something that they're not, they'll call it a Jewish conspiracy, right? Even Tucker Carlson, he plays so dumb about, oh, I'm not one of them. I'm going to play these clips for you now, where he's wearing a Kabbalah bracelet over and over and over. How many of you have seen these pictures all the time with him wearing the bracelet? And then after we've already heard him admit his dad's in the CIA, he gives an interview where he says, I was wearing a bracelet that my dad gave me. He was I think he says he's a garbage man, and that's all that bracelet is. And you could clearly see that it's the Kabbalah bracelet, but he didn't expect to get caught because they know they control the alt-right media who won't talk about things like this, but they don't control people like me and you who expose signs and symbols. They never expected that, which is why they had to remove all of us. And here you can even listen to him talking about the Talmud and how great and fascinating he thinks that this book is. Well, of course, playing dumb to the Kabbalah bracelet. It's incredible how these people could just lie, say what they want, backpedal, and nobody holds them accountable and sees through what they're trying to do. Like right now, pretending to call out Israel when these are agents of Israel, because we all know that they want to bring in the Noahide laws and more anti-Semitic laws that'll imprison people who question anything going on with Israel. Listen.
Non-Jews have 7 laws of Noah. That's all you got to do, and you get into heaven. And they're pretty easy.
They're great.
They're pretty easy. Don't eat an animal while it's still living.
Exactly.
Should be a no-brainer.
Don't kill.
Don't kill. Harder for some people, but not others. Don't rape. Even harder for some people, but most are still on the right side of it. I forget what the other ones are.
Adultery.
Yeah. It's not that hard. And you get to go to heaven. And you'll be right alongside a rabbi.
Well, not only that, they're like very reasonable.
Yeah, they're not like hard ones to do.
No, they're all kind of rooted in natural law.
Yeah.
No, I read that. And
Yeah, when you convert, they're like, what are you doing this for? You're just going to make it harder on yourself. You're going to heaven already.
That's interesting. Okay. You don't feel there's any contempt at all in that?
There becomes contempt, at the end where it's like, well, you're not in our group, so kind of fuck you. But that's not in the law. I mean, even Jesus is like, accept everyone, take them in.
Right.
But people don't really do that.
No.
Not
at all.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that the Sabbath laws are, like if you're using somebody else to do something that you're not allowed to do.
Yeah. Well, I talk about the loopholes in that special where it's like you're actually not allowed to fully ask them, can you turn this light on? Because then that's like you doing it. But
so it's by implication.
It sure is dark in here. I'm not allowed to turn the lights on. Non-Jews are allowed. But I can't do it. It does suck. I want to read. Yeah, it's so loophole-y. It's great.
I didn't know what the Talmud was
until
pretty recently. I'm reading it. I actually think it's really interesting.
It's very interesting. But there's so one of the commandments, you try to do as many as you can. Some of them are big temple-based, so you just can't anymore. You don't have a temple.
Not since 70 AD.
Boom. They're going to have another one, the Messiah, they say. So those laws will be back. But you try to do as many as you can. They're good deeds and they're bad deeds, but they're all like commandments. 613 of them.
Amazing.
It's nuts. When you get up the road from Tel Aviv, it's a windy road, and as soon as you get over that hill, it's a costume party. It's Fiddler on the Roof.
It's the best.
It's so weird. It's like you're living in an ancient time.
It's the most interesting place on the planet.
You to hold that up. That is his system. That is, if you're familiar with the Kabbalah tree of life. Are you familiar with that? The symbol of that?
No.
I probably should have printed that out too.
I wore a red rubber band from a newspaper on my wrist for most of my life, given to me by my father, because he worked at a newspaper. And I've been accused many times of being in the Kabbalah. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm an Episcopalian to reach.
Sure.
I don't know shit about Kabbalah, so no, I don't know what the Kabbalah tree is.
You strike me as a Kabbalah.
Well, of course he doesn't know what that bracelet is. He doesn't know what the tree of life is. I mean, he's only admitted to studying the Talmud, finding it interesting. And I apologize for some of the language used in that clip, but did you notice how he was talking about their good deeds outweighing their bad deeds? As above, so below. Talking about it right out in the open. Well, the Talmud talks about how their good deeds could outweigh their bad deeds, right? as above, so below. The Baphomet, the Freemasons, that is their belief as well. So we've already heard Jewish leaders demanding that Bible publishers print anti-Semitism disclaimers in the New Testament because they believe that it's anti-Semitic. But unfortunately, most Christians are going to fall into this deception with the Noahide laws because they're going to think, as you heard him talk about there, that the Noahide laws are wonderful rules to live by. But they don't realize that when they say idolaters, the Jewish people consider Christians idolaters of Christ. And they don't realize that the Bible is going to eventually be banned, and certain passages are going to be banned, like the synagogue of Satan in the book of Revelation, those who claim to be Jews and are not, and are of the synagogue of Satan. Of course, you don't hear any churches talk about that because any 501c3 church is not allowed to speak against the state of Israel. It's part of the rules to being allowed to be tax exempt. So this is what we can expect with where we're going with Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and the alt-right media feeding you conspiracies. Because everybody out there knew, the government knew the second that they pulled this off, that people were going to question the narrative because that's the world we live in now. It's about controlling the conspiracy. It's about giving you their theories that they want you to believe, like there was a second gunman or there was somebody in the crowd who shot him, or maybe his wife was in on it. The notion that all of these people in the media are CIA agents, they don't want you to believe or understand. They don't want you to think that these people don't really die and they go on and play different roles and have new job titles and job descriptions. It's as if these people think that Charlie Kirk was going to be 70 years old doing what he does, which is go to college campuses and do these types of things. All done by design. Even the whole script of how these guys like him and Steven Crowder go to college campuses for these debates, which aren't really debates. What they really are is one person asking a really dumb question, getting embarrassed by Charlie Kirk because he's a trained operative. This builds up Charlie Kirk's credibility because he's speaking common sense. He's speaking for Jesus Christ, which will lure Christians into believing him and following him. And now what you're going to see are people divided over this Israel theory, which is what you're seeing. You're seeing MAGA. Remember, the more you could divide into more denominations, the more they win. The more the people are divided, having different variations of the Republican Party. You have the alt-right, you have the MAGA, you have the extremists. Now you'll have, who believes that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, who believes it was a government opera. And you divide to the point there's no unity. And when there's no unity, there's no chance of an actual uprising or any type of pushback against the government. And that's what they do. So eventually, what will occur here is these theories about Israel will lead to anti-Semitic laws and anti-Semitic bills. And don't be surprised if we see some type of false flag event occur, because you're going to see more of them at synagogues. But then when you attach the narrative like they did with Pizzagate, they used the shooter, he was radicalized from conspiracy theories online. That was the first time we heard it. He was watching conspiracy videos. We all know who they were talking about, what channels, because there's only a few of us then talking about it. Then they said, well, we got to delete those channels. On top of that, we need to put things in place because these people are inciting violence when they talk about conspiracies. Well, just imagine a couple false flags at a synagogue. Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have been pushing anti-Semitism. We need more anti-Semitic bills. We need less anti-Semitism online. We can't have anyone questioning Israel. And in fact, what we need are the Noahide laws to bring peace in, right? Because Tucker Carlson just admitted in that clip that he's all for it, that it's all about good, morals and dignity. The Noahide laws is a good thing, right? And Christians will be duped because they don't really understand what it is. So that's the theory that's out there. That's a controlled narrative that they want out there. They aren't going to blame the Mossad and Israel in the national eye unless it's by design, period. And that's what they're doing. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.